Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Automation Empire. I'm your host, Hive Tyrant 424, and I'm showing you how I beat this planet in 11 game years with the 45,000 kg medallion. As far as I know, there are no cheat codes for this game, and I wouldn't use them even if there were, so you know that this is completely legit. You can see what's going to be my assembly building for offloading, but first things first. We've recently unlocked the remote connectors, which is a massive game changer. I had to pretty much delete everything, all of my refineries, all of my buildings, and start all over again. So I'm going to show you how I set up my refineries. First, we start off by dropping down a whole bunch of remote connectors. Now you can see these ones are orange. I always use the same color coding system whenever I'm building. Just makes things easier. So each of these remote connectors, I'm throwing on a transfer tube, a small transfer tube, and the arrows are pointing away from the connectors. So what that means is the connectors are going to feed those transfer tubes whatever I tell them to feed. So I'm going to have each one of these remote connectors sending resources, in this case coal, directly into each one of these crate makers. Now I know this is not the most efficient use. I could, create a loop system with step conveyors and everything like that, but I'm choosing to do it this way because it's easier. So I'm setting up this line, these unload station lines. What I do is I draw the entire line, set it to destroy all crates. Now I do that because if for whatever reason, like your receiving container is full and it won't accept any more materials, you could end up with a loaded crate sitting on your conveyor, and that will back up the entire system. That jams up everything. So now that we've got a step conveyor that connects to those unload stations, I'm going to put, these are actually called connector tubes or transfer tubes, but they're the ones that collect material. So I'm going to call them collectors. And at the end of each one of these collectors, I'm putting a green remote connector. Now the reason I do that is because, again, these remote connectors obey the rules for whatever you connect them to. So when you put them on a directional item such as a transfer tube collector, that means that anything that transfer tube collector collects is going to be deposited into the container that is the same color as your remote connector. I don't know why other people don't do this. Like I said, I think that it's just the game is new enough that nobody's actually tried this. But you save so much space. This building is actually my old coal refinery, and I had 9 refiners going at that time in this building. I didn't demolish the building. I just deleted everything inside of it because I wanted you guys to see the difference in the amount of productivity you get when you get these remote connectors and why they're such a game changer. So as you can see, I'm setting up a second line of refiners. I'm setting up a second line of refiners, and each one of these lines is, I think it's 13 refiners. So I have 26 refiners in this building now, in the space that I could only build 9 when I was using the step conveyors. So I'll do the same thing again. We're going to put step conveyors at the output of each one of these refineries, and I'm aiming each one of these at the unload belt so that once the transfer tube, the collector, picks up the refined coal out of the crate will shuffle off to the right side of the refiner, left side on your screen, but to the right if you're the refiner, and the empty crate disappears down the rabbit hole to be recycled. So we're going to put our connectors on here, and now we have 26 refiners for coal. That will handle all the coal on this map. So now I'm going to build the same setup over here for my iron, and I'll see you guys in a little bit. Okay, there we go. Now you'll notice that I didn't have quite enough room. Again, I just recycled the building. I didn't demolish the building. I'm reusing it. But you'll notice that I didn't have enough room to do the same thing here. But the really nice thing about that very simple design is that you can turn them sideways. You can fill in little nooks and crannies in your refinery if you've got, I think it's 9 squares by 3 squares, and that's the little squares, not the big tiles. But if you've got 9 by 3, you can build another refiner within your building anywhere. These remote connectors make it so easy. Now here's something that, again, I have never seen anybody else do in one of their videos for these so-called super efficient factories that they're building, and that is using these remote connectors for your inputs in your buildings. You don't have to have the containers connected to those collectors. All you have to do is color code your containers and put a collector on the track that you're picking up from, or in this case on that particular one where I will be depositing, and throw a remote connector on the collector, and you can do it anywhere. Look at this. Watch this. I did this on purpose. I wanted to do this in a very tight spot. You can't do that with a container, so use the connectors. They are so super game changing. You can transfer materials from anywhere inside the same building. So I have one setup for collecting iron and another setup for collecting coal. What I'm going to do is now I'm going to show you how to use the remote connectors to build your combining system. Because guess what? They work with those too. You have to feed the combiners with transfer tubes, either the collectors or a transfer tube connected to a container. But the problem is, and this is why I didn't use combiners when I unlocked them, the problem with using the containers and the other one is it's just so space consuming. I mean, you can build, in this size of a building, I could build maybe 4, possibly 5 combiners, but it would require a very intricate network of railroad or mining carts, to feed these machines. I've tried step conveyors with, just loading boxes of materials, and they get jammed up really easy, those systems, I find. Well, not going to be able to put that guy there. See if I can maybe turn him sideways. Nope, but I can stick it right there. So now that I've got my combiners laid out, just going to attach the remote connectors. Now this is how I do it. Do it however you want, but I always go left to right. It's logical. So I'll use orange for my first component, and that always goes on the left side of my combiner. I use blue for the second component. That goes on the right side of my combiner, and I use green for the finished product, for the output, whatever is going to be leaving the building. That is my green connector. So as you can see, instead of containers, I simply have connectors on all of the transfer tubes, and the connectors are color coded to the bins. So in the bottom right hand corner of this combining building, we have a small orange container. And again, they're not connected to the connector at all. They're not connected to the collectors at all. They're just sitting there. But as long as they're color coded, they will accept anything that is input through it's taken in through one of those collectors. Alrighty, we've unlocked trains. As you can see, I'm researching the living hell out of a bunch of gold fuel. It's quite valuable, so it's... Oh, I lied. We hadn't unlocked the trains yet. Now we've unlocked the trains. There we go. All right. As I was saying, I was researching the gold fuel because it's expensive, and I needed the research points to get the train. That's right. So now I'm going to show you guys my secret, ultra effective train loading. I'm not even kidding. I learned this by accident, and it was like, oh my God. First of all, the trains And I don't like this aspect of it. The trains will only load, at least from what I have been able to discover, the trains will only load one car at a time. So having a whole bunch of those silos all lined up next to each other, and in the various configurations I have seen other YouTubers doing with their trains, all you're doing is cluttering up your screen. Really, putting all those silos next to each other, they do nothing for helping you load your trains. It's not to say that you don't want to have lots of silos, because the way the trains work is there are 3 cars on the train plus 1 car for every silo you have on the track that is associated with that train. So if you have 10 silos on the tracks, anywhere on the tracks, your train will have 13 cars on it. Obviously, you want to have lots of cars on your train so that you can offload more material each trip. And I have seen and heard a lot of people that have been making videos of this game and playing it. I've seen and heard them all complaining about how long the trains take to load. Yes, they do seem to take forever to load. However, once that train is fully loaded, if you can keep it, or if you can get the train completely loaded, once that train starts to leave, you're going to see your productivity skyrocket. And all you have to do is set up the loading system. Oops, can't fit that right there. I'll have to move the track over one. I'll just do like a single track shift. I don't want to have to rebuild the whole thing. Anyway, all you have to do is keep your loading system full of materials, and you will load every single car on that train from one silo. I know, it seems simple, right? It's so stupidly easy that it's almost laughable. So I have 2 sets of tracks there, 1 silo on each at my point of loading. So this is how I keep all my silos loaded without having to do all the rigmarole of connecting a whole bunch of containers to all of the silos. Again, this does absolutely nothing. There's no benefit at all to having all of your silos on the tracks right by your loading system. All it does is clutter up the area. If you want to, move some resources with some elevated minecart tracks over your train tracks, you can't go over silos unless, I think you can do it if you have elevation 3 minecart tracks. But why go through the hassle? I throw all of my containers, my silos, here at the beginning or at the end, as far away from where I plan to be loading as possible, because you don't need them next to the track or next to your loading facility. So why have them there? Put them here out of the way. Let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, plus the 1 silo over there. That's 15. So each of my trains is going to have 18 cars on it. And as you can see, I have already pre-built my combiner over there, and I'm going to be shipping out fuel oil to start, or gold fuel, I think it's called. I call it fuel oil. It's diesel. Former truck driver. What can I say? And what do we got here? We got 2, 4, 6, 7. We got 21 combiners. Believe me when I tell you, as long as I can keep those 21 combiners fed, that's more than enough to load 2 trains at 16 or 18 cars apiece. Now I'm going to get this thing going. You'll notice that I deliberately used a long track to get my gold oil out, or my gold fuel out. And I did that because if you have a short line, I used to use short lines, and I still have to sometimes, but I don't like it. But if you have a short line like I've got there on that one there, what you'll have, if you have too many cars on the track, is you'll have the train stop to load a cart, it'll move a half space forward, and then it'll stop to unload a cart. And that takes the train, the mining cart train, twice as long to either fill or empty into your loading system. So if you use a long track where your mining cart train fully loads and then even if it only moves one block, one square, and then it starts to unload, it's much more efficient. Yeah, I don't care about that area right now. I'm focused on my trains. By the way, when you've got trains, once you've unlocked trains, if you're using the combiner system the way I showed you, or something similar to that, but you've got a lot of combiners going and feeding a system like this, you will reach your 30,000 kg objective without even going to the rockets. I'm not kidding. You just have to have enough trains. You have to make sure you keep those trains fed and that each of those trains has enough cars. Now watch this. This is so beautiful. Because the trains only load from one silo, you only have to have one silo there, and they'll stop under that silo. Now, as you can see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 large containers connected through transfer tubes to those two train lines. So those large containers fed from one combiner factory, and I can build 2 or 3 combiner factories and have one feeding the end of the connector down there. On one end of the containers, I could have another car from another combiner factory feeding the other end of those containers. The trains will never starve as long as your combiner factories continually push out material. And that is the essence of efficiency. You want... What do we got going on here? Okay, never mind. You want those trains to be fully loaded every time. Now, these trains will not be fully loaded, as you will see, because I started the system before I had charged my combiner system properly. So what I'm going to do is, I've done is I've cut out 2 sections of track, and I should have actually cut out the curves, because as you can see, both trains are bypassing a large number of empty cars there. But what I've done is I've stopped those trains. They're not going anywhere. And I'm allowing my production, my combiner factory, to fill my large containers, which will immediately go into the next available empty train car. As you'll see, watch this. He's starting to unload, but none of the containers are getting any material. That's because the silos are filling. The silos will always fill from any system connected to them. Yeah, we need to unlock the oil rigs. That's 2 million research points. Ugh. Well, that's why I'm researching with gold oil. All right. Now, it's more important for me right now to get the material. I want to try and... I have to get my productivity up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take back this fuel, this gold fuel, and I'm going to redistribute it to my train system. Get those trains loaded and get them out of here. Trying to get enough productivity up so that I can unlock the remainder of the technology I'm going to need. The nice thing is, once you need 22,000 kg per 3 months in order to unlock rockets. Once you've achieved that, you don't have to maintain it. You just have to achieve it. You have to get your productivity to that point at least once. Once you've done that, you've unlocked it. All you got to do is to spend the resources, get the research points, and bang, you have your next technology unlocked. So anyway, I'm going to tie this episode off here, you guys. That was trains and combiners and the refineries built with the remote connectors. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy the episode, please don't forget to like and subscribe. In my next episode, and probably final for this planet, I'm going to show you the high end of what I built, as well as the productivity levels, the profitability levels, and a sneaky trick that I use in order to basically put distribution wherever I want on the map. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks for watching.